Hey everyone, I'm excited to share my thoughts on The Big Leap, a book by Hendricks. It's a book I actually read a couple of years ago, but recently was at a party and a friend of mine who's an executive coach asked me if I had a video on this one, and I didn't, so I said I'd be happy to do a review of it. And it was great for me to reread the book and got a lot more out of it the second time around. So essentially, this book is about how you can get to your highest potential, which is the zone of genius. However, there's something that holds all of us back from reaching that place, and it's this internal thermostat or internal thermometer that caps our allowable happiness. This could be something from childhood, growing up in your family or whatnot, but basically, we all have this internal gauge, and there's a tendency to make sure that we don't exceed that happiness level for too long. So, as an example, you might be having an amazing day at work, you got promoted, you got a big bonus, and you come home and you get in an argument with your spouse because your level of happiness exceeded kind of what is sort of the norm for you. And so there's these tendencies to create problems and bring your level of happiness down to that kind of a maximum level. So think about times when you're on a vacation and you're having a great time with your family. You get on the plane and a big fight, ensues, and all of a sudden, all that sort of happens just goes out the window. And so, the theory here is that we have this internal gauge, and anytime it is exceeded, we unconsciously do things that bring it down to that level of comfort, I guess. And so, those items could be worrying, especially when you start worrying about things that are out of your control. So you can think about things are going very well, and all of a sudden these, thoughts go through your head around worrying about how your kids are doing and whether they're safe at school, or worrying about a parent or a spouse or whatnot. So those are things that unconsciously we do to bring that level down. Criticism and blame of yourself or others is another way. Getting into arguments, deflecting criticism. And even what's interesting is the author would argue that sometimes getting injured or even getting sick is a result of an unconscious move to reduce your happiness. So you're super excited about an upcoming vacation, you're running around, and all of a sudden you trip and you fall and you break your ankle. Obviously, some things are unavoidable, but the author would argue that a lot of these things are sort of just unconscious, kind of way of bringing you down to that level of happiness that you're more comfortable with. There's another element. So those are things on the left of the page that really are the ones that bring you down when you've exceeded it from some sort of, fun, exciting, adventure or experience in life, personally, professionally. And then there's stuff that keeps you from going above it. These are limiting beliefs. So this could be in regards to a relationship. It could be in regards to professional endeavors. And so it's something like, hey, I want to start a new company, but it doesn't have to be very successful. It just make me a little bit of money. It's fine. And so those you're arguing for kind of a limit. Like there's no need to put a cap on kind of a level of success or some level of enjoyment in a relationship. And so when you do this, you're arguing in favor of limitations, which is just not productive and keeps you down and keeps you at that maximum kind of allowable kind of happiness or feeling in your life, which I think is a super important thing to recognize and just try and do your best to be conscious of when you're putting those limiting beliefs in place around whether it's a new relationship or an experience or a job or a new opportunity that you're going to pursue. I know for me, it's something that I've thought about as well as I go and do new endeavors where I artificially, to protect my ego, most likely, and rejection, say, well, it doesn't have to be so successful. Or if I'm going to do a race, I don't need to do a great time. I just want to finish it. And so those are just things to be aware of as you think about sort of moving to the highest level of a relationship or personally or professionally. These are some of the key hidden barriers the author talks about that keeps that upper limit problem in place. He goes into detail on all of these, and I won't go into as much detail, obviously, as in the book, but just want to point out a few of these four sort of hidden barriers that he talks about that keep this upper limit issue in place. So it's important to be aware of these. Feeling fundamentally flawed, disloyalty and abandonment. Hey, I can't go and achieve my greatest purpose because I would leave my family behind, or this is not the way I was raised to go do this thing and pursue my, passion. Potentially could be, well, if I'm very successful in doing what I love, then that could just be a burden in and of itself, whether it's my family or my time and things like that. So just being aware of these things is part of the tools to sort of keep you moving forward to that higher level in the other zones of genius, which I'll talk about in a second. So big philosophy is around these different zones, and the goal is to get to that zone of genius where you have the full expression of your unique gifts that are unique to you. And this is a place where just being here is enough of a gift, and your ego isn't needed at all. But it's those upper limit issues I talked about earlier keep you from kind of making this jump from the left of the page up to that zone of genius. And so, we have these different levels. At the bottom level, obviously, a zone of incompetence, which is something that you do that is hard for you to do. You're not good at it. Takes a lot of energy. It doesn't make you happy. And it could be something like, hey, instead of hiring someone to, install something in your house, you spend an entire day trying to figure out how to hook up your, AV equipment, and you're not good at it, and you spend a lot of time and effort, and you're miserable. And that's something where it's just better to outsource it and don't do it at all, unless it's a skill you want to master or you find enjoyment in, woodworking. You're not good at it, but you enjoy it. Competence is something that you do as well as anyone else. It's nothing special. There's no real reward that comes of it. You just kind of do it, and you should spend as little time in that zone as well. And zone of excellence is something that I want to pause on and spend a little more time, because this is one where most of us spend a lot of our time. This is something we're very good at. We're rewarded. We get promoted. We make money. And it's very addicting and seductive to stay in this particular zone, because you've built your life around this. You've been rewarded. Your ego is tied up in this. Other people want you to stay in this zone, right? So if you're, making a lot of money for your family, I'm sure that, your family members will want you to stay here, and because it keeps them comfortable as well. So it's very important to kind of recognize that when you're in a zone of excellence versus a zone of genius, and determine whether you want to make that big leap and move into the zone of genius. And in the book, there's a lot of tools to kind of help you recognize when you're in these different zones and how you can potentially recognize what your zone of genius, may be. The last slide here is just some of my favorite takeaways from the book. I think it's definitely worth reading. But regarding to fear, fear is excitement without breath. Another one I like is this golf analogy around, like, unlike other sports where you can blame sort of the defense or your offense or whatnot, golf, it's just the ball just sits there and it waits for you to take action, and it's all up to you. It's all in your control. And the mysteries of life in golf will unveil once you take a swing, and once you, make that move. There's a lot of other good topics in here around money and time, scarcity, and things like that. So I highly recommend, checking out this book. And if anything resonates, let me know. Thank you.